Hey everybody, you're listening to We Have to Grow, the podcast that is all about teenagers' point of views on pop culture, current issues, and daily life.
We're going to be sharing opinions and perspectives from teens on the latest news. We talk about everything from heavy topics to everyday situations in adolescent life. Made by women and hosted by women. First of all, we need to talk about the delay.
Whoops.
Do you want to go?
So sorry.
Explain what it was.
Okay, so what was our original date? Our original date was the 13th, May 13th.
Oh, you know it. I don't know.
Oh. Yeah, it was because it was a Friday. So Friday the 13th.
Right.
It was going to be so cool. Obviously, that didn't happen.
We had a little complications. First of all, what was the first reason? The first reason was just scheduling.
Scheduling was already...
We couldn't decide. You had a doctor's appointment?
Oh, yeah.
That you moved?
Yes, but it wasn't really a doctor's appointment. It was just for my contacts. No big deal, but like...
okay. And then
what happened? Oh, and then I went to the hospital. The little emergency room.
Yeah, that's how you couldn't do it on time. And then things after that just kept happening.
Okay, like I said, we could have filmed that Thursday, but you guys didn't want to. And then we couldn't find a day where we were all free.
We just thought you were on your deathbed, and we thought you were gonna die. And so we're like, best idea? I don't think so. So that was
the first one.
That was the first delay. And then week after week, we're like, oh, we're gonna do it. And then finals came. Oh, finals. It came up, and then
that just fucked it up even more. Oh,
and then we were stressed out, and then your job.
My job.
The other person's job, who is not here today. Should we explain that?
Yeah.
Okay, so originally we're going to have 3 people who are a part of the podcast. 2 of us are here today. Our third musketeer isn't here because of personal problems.
She's more behind the scenes, unless she's needed on the scene.
Yeah, like if we can't come to a conclusion about a certain thing, she's always there to guide us.
Or if we're on the point of possibly being canceled.
Oh, true.
I was going to say canceled.
No, yeah. Well, same thing. So that's why only 2 of us are here. And it isn't the most ideal situation because, of course, to start, you should have everyone here. But it just, if that were the case, we would take another month to start.
Maybe even make it to the whole next school year.
Yeah. And that isn't the point. So as for our personal information and names, how we're going to be identified and how you're going to know who's talking, obviously by the voice, but we're not going to talk to each other by our personal names because we're in high school. We need our privacy. And we would get dragged through the mud if people knew. Obviously, there's going to be people who know because our close friends, do know. But as for anyone else who is listening that wasn't obligated to listen, hopefully they will just listen, not because they know us or, something like that.
But also, how ironic. 3 people who hate attention
are making a podcast. You know what? We're changing lives out here. First of all, we want to talk about how our podcast is really about growth. And so in going with theme with that, we all chose a plant that would represent us, and that's how we are going to identify ourselves because of privacy reasons. So our co-host, who is going to be more behind the scenes, but still very much a part of this podcast, who couldn't be here today, is going to go by a purple daisy. We all have little characters drawn of ourselves, and that's what she chose. We chose one that we think would represent us best. So she is a purple daisy inspired by the pleasing flower. Hairstyles, don't sue us, we don't have money. And yeah, hopefully she will introduce herself more in a farther episode since she couldn't be here today. As for myself, I chose a little ivy plant because a Taylor Swift song called Ivy. Again, we're getting copyrighted everywhere. Do you want to introduce yours?
As for myself, I chose to go with a cactus.
So, I was about to say your name, but you would identify as?
I think I would just go.
P?
Yeah.
P. I'm Ivy. Our third co-host would be
Daisy.
So that's what we're going to do to minimize the risk of people finding out, because hopefully people are going to find out. But just hopefully not as fast as we think they will. So we want to go into a little bit of our personal goals and how we decided to start a podcast. First of all, like about how we decided, or how like the idea kind of sprouted.
Okay, what was it?
We were in school.
The first semester.
First semester, we only had one class together. And as your typical teenagers, we're like, wow, people would love to hear what we would say. And honestly, they don't, but that's just like our ego talking.
Yeah.
And we're gonna let it.
Why would we not add a podcast into our resume?
True.
So if this doesn't work out, I don't care.
But
I'm
also,
still edit.
The people who are hiring us are listening to us right now.
No.
So click off. You just have to see it. You don't even have to hear it. It was just, we thought we were too good.
We needed to voice our opinions, and we needed to let everyone know what our opinion was.
We just needed like that, because when we started on the first semester, we would only talk in a group of 4. And sometimes things got a little, we couldn't stop, so we were like, we need a 5th friend, but since we didn't have a 5th friend, we're like, the podcast.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So now whenever we have disagreements, it's going to be up to you guys.
Oh. And then going back to that, we actually started it. We had the idea for semester, but we actually like initiated it.
Second semester.
I just know the Taylor Swift album dropped, and we were talking about Jake Gyllenhaal, and you're like, wow, we would sound really good in the podcast. Yeah. So that's why we're here. And then.
So thank Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Hopefully that can make up for her suing me. And then we just started it. This is also, we started the second semester, right? Yeah. We started talking about it. It wasn't even anything planned. I just sent you a random message. And I was like, hey, do you want to meet up later to start a podcast? And you're like, yeah. And then it just became to be. And I started planning. Our initial plan, we talked about it on a Friday.
Yeah.
Right? Somewhere around there, at the end of the week. Yeah. And then we were like, oh, we can do it next week on the Friday. So it gave me like the weekend and up until Friday to plan it all out, to plan we were filming and everything. And I underestimated myself. I underestimated how much work it would be.
You overestimated the workload.
And I finished everything in the weekend. Also, like with our characters, I drew a little cartoon just so everyone could make sure who's talking. And that, knowing I had a whole month would have really helped me, but we really thought that we were going to start it in that week. And that ended up not being the case, but you know what? We're here now.
And that's what matters.
And that's what matters. Of course, not with our full cast here. We're missing one, but you know what? We'll be back.
If it wasn't for her, we would not be doing this right now. We would have waited a whole nother month.
True. About our delay, it was bound to happen. Because we are, again, teenagers, early adults.
In school.
Ignore that. In school, who have a lot of responsibilities going on. And our future isn't always going to be, like, super planned out. Like, things are going to come up. We're not always going to be perfect, you know. But we're going to try to. And that's what, like, this whole podcast is kind of about. Like, being an example that, like, you are a teenager, or at least I think majority of people listening to this will be. But yeah, it's normal, and we hope that we're an example of like the world isn't gonna. I definitely going into this because I did cram so much in that weekend because I thought we were gonna release it right away. I definitely will take this situation and as an example as to like you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be fine. It's gonna happen either way, and just to like, we owned up to it, and that's like pretty much all we could do. and we hope you understand. Like, we want people to know that it's okay to kind of be late to things. Like, it's gonna happen one point or another, and we hope that you guys can understand why we were late. You know, if it was up to us, we wouldn't, and we would have done it in the first week. But of course, like, personal issues came up with two of our co-hosts.
Shit happens.
Life
goes on.
And
we're still growing.
We're still here. There's only so much we can do. Again, we have things going on. It's not always going to be so planned out. This is our first. We've never done anything like this.
Never.
The most we have done is a PowerPoint presentation. And
barely.
Mine are always late, so but hopefully we get better at this, and you guys can see us grow. Some of our goals that we have for this podcast, as in what we hope to accomplish, and kind of like our mission of really why we did start this was, I know a big one that I think we all have is there's a lot of teenagers out there who have different point of views, and sometimes it's not their own point of views, it's more of like their parents' point of views, and we just want to let them know that like that isn't, one topic isn't always going to be so one-sided. Like, you should explore all yours, and then maybe just make your decision based on one. And also,
well, along with what you were saying, there's like teenagers who know like their opinion, like they're so die hard for one specific opinion, but then on the other side of that, you also have teenagers who
have no opinion.
No, I was gonna say that don't feel like their opinion is heard enough, because they don't say anything. Like you and me, like we have so many opinions, and we don't feel like they're heard.
Yeah.
Hence why we started this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. It's like people in a classroom when your teacher. I don't know if you experience this. I'm sure you do, because I mean we tend not to talk a lot.
We're basically the same person.
Basically, when a teacher is like talking about a topic, I desperately want to raise my hand and be like, well, you should think about it this way, or maybe consider this point of view. And I don't think either of us were given. Our shyness definitely like got in the way of us trying to include
voice our opinion.
Yeah. So that's another goal we have. Another one, what do you say?
Like for like the podcast or personal?
Podcast. Like,
podcast wise, we want to start the conversation for so many topics that not a lot of teens think they should have an opinion on. Because then there's adults saying like, oh, you're just a kid, you don't know anything.
Yeah, so also topics that are like make people uncomfortable, we should be talking about those topics. Like, our podcast is going to include explicit topics, like kids, like we're teenagers, early adults, late teenagers, somewhere around there, and I think it's frowned upon sometimes when people from our age are talking about sex or things like that, and we definitely don't want that to be the case, because if we get so used to people being afraid to talk about those topics that make them uncomfortable, it's always going to be like that. Like, we're making no progress, and that's a goal we have.
We want to create a safe space
for everyone. I think that's like our main goal we have altogether. Yeah. So some of our personal goals we have would be, do you want to start off?
Yeah. Okay, so for me, it would be, it's kind of like intertwined with our podcast goal. It's to make sure everyone has their opinion heard. Specifically though, like girls, because I feel like girls are always left out, and that should not be the way. But I also think this would help for me, it would help with my shyness a little bit, because they can't see my face and they can't see what I'm doing, but I can still voice my opinion without that fear of like what people think of me or my opinion.
I think when it comes to, as far as what you said, that's common. All of our individual goals are kind of intertwined with our personal goals. I know mine is, I think my biggest goal with starting this was just to kind of also create a safe space, but more in the sense where in our age group, because I think, you know, when talking to people, teenagers a lot of times want to talk to people, but they can't, based off on the criticism that they will receive. So, like, you know, if you talk to your parent and you're like, oh, I really want to talk about this, because they only see a certain topic one way. Like, one example would be gun safety. Like, your parent might be like, oh, well, you're more safer with a gun by your side. And you kind of want to say, like, oh, well, I don't think that. But for adults to take you seriously requires a lot of hard work. They think it's their opinion that only matters. And I really want to address that.
Especially with immigrant parents.
Yes, I think we all have immigrant parents. Also, a little bit more about us.
We're all minorities, one way or another.
True, we're all Libra women. Oh my god. But yeah, definitely, like, including teenagers' point of view, because I think people can argue about this, but I definitely think teenage point of view is the most important, because you're at an age where you can, like, definitely grasp what's going on, what's the reality of things going on, and you're gonna be leading the world. Like, at one point or another, you're the future adults, and shouldn't your opinion matter most? Like, because we're gonna be teachers, we're gonna be doctors, we're gonna be, you know, the future, and I think people should definitely listen to us, because
their time is over.
We're the setup, you know, so.
We're the future.
True. Circling back to a little bit about what this podcast is going to include, I think
the majority of it will be an intertwining of pop culture with social issues, because we think they kind of go like hand in hand most of the time, especially with the ones from today.
Like the ones going on right now.
Yeah.
As people and as
young adults.
Yeah.
So for the whole podcasting goes, we're aiming, we're trying to release one episode per week, which would be Friday morning.
Friday mornings,
because we're aiming for 45 minutes, but we're probably not there yet. If anything, it'll be lower.
Because we're just so new to this.
Yeah, we're awkward.
And
should have seen our beginning.
A mess. Be thankful this is getting edited, because if it wasn't, so.
Okay, so 45 minutes. We're hoping once we get better at this, we'll go over the 45 minutes, and we'll have all the time in the world to talk about whatever we want to talk about.
I think our second episode will definitely be better.
Probably, most likely.
Because this is the most awkward thing ever, because we're introducing something we haven't even started yet, you know? I don't know if you're like that, but, like, with projects, I can never introduce them if I'm, like, not finished with it, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to write about.
Because you never know.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys understand.
Since We Have to Grow is a podcast made by and run by 3 teen girls, we can't wait for you to listen to us grow. But along with that, we would love for you to grow with us. We want to make sure that this podcast is a safe space for everyone, and make sure to offer the right resources in order to make it a safe space. This first episode will include the Trevor Project, an organization that is near and dear to our heart that many could benefit from hearing some information about.
Since there are 3 co-hosts, one of us is going to choose a different little organization each time. One that we really care about, that we have recently read about, that we kind of include, and I think, like, that's going to be part of our conclusion for every podcast, is to talk about one of them, just because there are so many great organizations out there, and we kind of, like, along with pop culture, we really want to be based on making these podcasts, again, a safe space, and by doing that, we can talk about, like, different organizations, because different people are going through different things, and it's never a bad thing to
for people to get resources.
Yeah, offer more resources. And we're starting off with the Trevor Project, because who doesn't love the Trevor Project? I think it's, like, one of the most popular organizations out there, but also, like,
not a lot of people know.
Yeah. Or at least they know the name, but don't really know what it's about.
Project is an American nonprofit organization that focuses on suicide prevention Mostly around people a part of the LGBTQ plus community, because not a lot of people seem to be there for them, which I find really, really nice of them.
The Charter Project is also like really important to us, or at least for me, because we are in Pride Month, and we didn't like anticipate this. We didn't think we thought our podcast was going to definitely start earlier than June, but it all came up together so nicely.
It all worked out in the end.
It all did. So I just think, in spirit of that month, I'm not trying to be like Walmart that produces gay packaging for everything and says Pride support, but I think considering the time, it's pretty good to talk about.
Oh my God, speaking of Walmart, that one time this lady came up to me while I was working there. She's like, "Excuse me, where's your Pride collection?" I'm like, "Ma'am, I am so sorry.
But like,
we don't have one."
You should have pointed and be like, "It's right here."
It's right here. But they gave out the little pronoun, and I didn't get one. Very homophobic of them, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's boycott Walmart. Our first episode goes out to Walmart. If you work there, quit.
Fuck you.
And if you shop there, go to Target. I'll send you an extra few dollars. Inflation, let's call up Joe.
What happens if
what if you just call up Taylor? We're dedicating our first episode to Joe Biden in Walmart. And the Charter Project. Let's not forget about that one. I'm also including all of this. Okay. If you can take one thing from this podcast today, we're hoping that you can take the organization we talk about in every episode. Of course, like we mentioned, this episode, Charter Project, check it out. There will be a few links on our Instagram about it. We're going to do this little thing on our Instagram. If you aren't following us,
go follow us.
What are you doing? It's We Have to Grow podcast. And, we have little icons for each of us, and under each icon, little story, we're going to include the podcast, and we're going to include it under whoever chose that podcast, and just some information about it.
We just want to make sure the people who need the resources get the resources.
Yes, and
what better way
than on Instagram, where most of your problems probably arise from them. But you know what? It's the easiest way we found, considering our age, and who doesn't have Instagram? One of our co-hosts doesn't have Instagram. It's fine. But yeah, check out our Instagram if you want to see more about the Charter Project. At the end of the episode, we are going to include information on our Instagram about it. So again, We Have to Grow podcast. But yeah, that's it. It's a little awkward. But this is as good as it's going to get for our first episode.
Yep. As we grow, we hope we get better.
Truly. Oh, I hope. I don't know what I hope. Yeah, as we go on, we hope that we get better. And obviously, we are shy people. And even though there's no one here but us, we are still shy. So that's our
bear with us, Rose.
Yeah, but that's our only hope we have, to hopefully get better, being resources for people, and being a podcast altogether. Go check out the Charter Project. This podcast was a little embarrassing, a little rough, but this is the start. This is how it's probably going to go for our next 3 episodes. I hope not, but bear with us, honestly. We're very new to this. We haven't planned a lot, I would say, as far as like
the future.
This is, what do you call? You know how there's small businesses?
Mm-hmm.
We're a small podcast. So bear with us as we get over a little shyness.
We're the small business on TikTok who's trying to guilt trip you into buying their stuff.
Oh my God. I honestly do sometimes. I feel so bad. But also, they never give free stickers. I'm like, girl.
That's their downfall, honestly.
Anyways. This is how a lot of our podcasts are going to go. So just be ready for us to get off topic. Oh, mostly because our co-host isn't here. If she was here, we would be on it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So if you're listening, please come back.
We need you. Hopefully you don't hate us for how bad this episode was. But again, I want to emphasize how this podcast is about growth. And, acknowledging that it's okay to start off a little rough. Because it's the finished product that matters. Oh my God, listen to me.
Thank God for editing.
Thank God for editing. So I think this is the end of our first episode. This we're gonna leave it off. We have to grow. We hope that you will be here to join us next week for our next episode. Our first kind of official episode.
Yeah.
Not official since this is
yeah.
But official.
Should we say what we're gonna talk about next episode?
You just have to wait and find out.
Oh.
If you find us interesting enough, come back. Just give the second episode a chance.
Yeah.
And if you decide
Okay, might as well give the third one.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say if they're crazy, just leave. Either way.
We need views.
We do need views. Oh God. Oh my God, we're gonna start spiraling. Okay, anyways. This is the end of our first episode. We hope you enjoy it. We hope you stick around for our future episodes. That's the only thing we ask. Please.
We need you.
We know that this first episode has been a little
all over the place
and just a little bit awkward, but we're gonna get over that, hopefully. And hopefully you get over secondhand embarrassment you probably get from this. So this is We Have to Grow podcast, and we have to go.
Continue to grow.